tonight we are going to be watching The Acolyte episode 3. Well, the ratings have finally come out for the first 5 days of The Acolyte's first 2 episodes. And there was a lot of gotchas going around on Twitter when they released that 4.8 million figure for the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
The problem was they did not know how it was going to stand up next to a series like Ahsoka, but we have those numbers now. When Ahsoka premiered in the first 5 days, it garnered about 14 million views. The Acolyte comes in short at just 11.1 million views in the first 5 days.
20% less viewers than Ahsoka in the first 5 days. But they were coping, the media shills were coping really hard because they said 4.8 million on the first day of release is really impressive, right? Why do you think they released 2 episodes at once? Split that up in 2. You've got 2.4 million per episode if you had to guess. I'm sure it's more on the first than the second as people gave up.
What's going to happen is the numbers will start high.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with YouTube, right?
Yeah, and they said, oh, it's the highest viewership for the first day of release of any Disney Plus original show in 2024.
Whenever somebody starts a sentence like that, guys, pay attention to how many qualifiers come into it.
I was like counting.
Yes.
There were so many, I lost count. But obviously that's a gigantic hope. This isn't a bomb. I wouldn't say it's a bomb, but they wouldn't release the numbers if it were.
I think it's a bomb. I think for the price that they paid for the show,
well,
look, Ahsoka cost $100 million to make. This cost $180 million to make.
People comparing it to the numbers for House of the Dragon, for instance,
which
getting
was
10 million.
And then going up from there.
Going up
so
after
the
each
numbers
episode.
we talked about this. I was on with Valiant Renegade on Sunday on his channel, and they were talking about that. Look, those numbers started there and then went up and got large amounts of doubling its audience the day after its release. Right? So those numbers only go up from there because strong word of mouth. That show ended on a high note because it started, like, that came out at the same time as Rings of Power, right? Basically around that same time. And remember, the Amazon did the same thing with Rings of Power, where they touted that first number. It was like 25 million people tuned in to watch Rings of Power. And then they never gave any statistics after that. I'm almost surprised that Disney gave any statistics for the 5-day numbers to begin with.
Yeah, the rest of the headlines about The Acolyte right now are about review bombing and backlash against diversity. Right now, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 90% from critics.
75% if you do just top critics. So it
I don't even know what's the difference between a critic and a top critic exactly.
I don't know if it's about how many reviews they do, or if they have to be labeled top critic by if they're chosen by Amazon, or if they're chosen by Rotten Tomatoes. If you look at it here, it starts at 90% for all critics, and then you go top critics, and it drops to 75. We also talked about this because a lot of them,
from audience.
A lot of the reviews from the critics didn't even choose a fresh or rotten rating. They just wrote their review.
Why didn't they choose
Because they don't want to get yelled at for choosing rotten.
Yelled at by whom? Who are they so afraid of? That's what I don't understand.
Or they don't want to lose access.
It's a freaking TV show at the end of the day.
Or they don't want to lose access to early releases.
Well, that's surprising because Film Threat has been trashing The Acolyte, and they got a lot of hate the other day. They got an early access to episodes 3 and 4 and released a review for season 1 as a whole altogether. And they revealed some information about episode 3, which I hope none of you care about spoiling. I'm sure you don't, because last time you laughed at the idea that you were
we will
avoiding
give
spoilers.
Some spoilers.
But here were the spoilers that Film Threat gave. So we learn in episode 3 that Osha wants to leave her mother's coven to become a Jedi. The Jedi have been keeping the peace in the galaxy for centuries, but like modern-day law enforcement, the heroes are actually the villains set on holding all the power. The result is that the Jedi exile the witches. Unable to bring any thoughtful insight into these themes means we have a boring series on our hands. It's a crime thriller with the mystery already solved within... If you have more than 2 brain cells to rub together the first 15 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't really know what they think they did with that cliffhanger at the end of episode 2, but we're just along for the ride. There's not really anything else to be to be gained from watching this. But episode 3 is the origin of the Witch Coven, which you'll probably feel that Star Wars is finally dead. It's not for the OG fans anymore. The Witch Coven confused me because yes, I've watched the movies, but I am by no means a lore expert. Neither are you. Yep. And we make sure to have that disclaimer every time we talk about this. But this refers to what I looked up and read about today. The Witches of Dathomir, the Daughters of Alya, the clan-based warrior society native to the planet Dathomir, who are mainly mentioned in the novels and then more focused on in the Clone Wars series. Mm-hmm. But none of this was in the movies, to my understanding. Which is confusing because Disney stated that everything other than the movies was getting wiped out of the canon.
In 2014, they decanonized the expanded universe.
And to the dismay of actually a lot of fans, Kathleen Kennedy said, we're not using the source material of comic books.
Well, no, she said said they don't have any. And
she denied their existence. Okay.
A lot of people were very upset when she's like, look, we're not Marvel. We don't have any we don't have any source material to pull from. And everyone's like, excuse me?
You know, you would think would inoculate you from a lot of mistakes. I was just thinking about this earlier. You know, they don't have the opportunity, if they're just using the Star Wars movies as source material, they don't have the opportunity to just go and find this obscure passage in a Tolkien novel that might be construed into a 3.5-hour movie if you thought about it hard enough. They don't have the opportunity to do that, so they have to make original content. But it's like, if you had this dream, Leslie Headland, of making a show or a movie about lesbian birthing mothers in space who are also witches. If you wanted to make a show about lesbian witches in space growing up, you could have done that. Nobody's going to stop you from doing that. We're encouraging you to do that. But the problem comes in when you are using this franchise as the vehicle to do so.
Yep. And
I guess that's the explanation for why they called this the gayest Star Wars show to ever be made. They're including lesbian birthing mothers in the next episode. So
here's the thing, okay? When they say the best release premiere for a Disney Plus production in 2024, they mean better than Echo, which is a spin-off of a character that nobody wanted to see, and X-Men 97, which is a highly regarded, well-liked series, but it was animated and didn't do the numbers that they thought it was. Comparable. It is ostensibly considered a flop, even though it's both critically praised and praised by the fans. It didn't do the numbers that they wanted. Percy Jackson did like 13.6 million premiere last year. They can't even beat Percy Jackson with Star Wars
on Disney Plus. You mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Echo was.
Nobody asked for Echo. Nobody cared.
Very irrelevant.
The same is going to be true of Agatha.
I know when Agatha comes out.
Nobody's going to be asking
said
for
that
it.
they didn't. Some people said that they didn't hate Ahsoka.
Well, okay, so here, this is the thing that I was talking about. So what they want to do, what they're worried about right now is, if you look at the numbers, we were looking at the list of the most liked franchise, Star Wars productions in order. And right down there at number 7 is Andor. So it's in the top 10. Here's the problem. Nobody cared about Andor. Yeah. They didn't. So the hardcore fans liked it and thought it was a great take on the universe, but it didn't garner any of the general public interest. So the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And what they're fighting against right now is apathy. And the best way to do that is to piss everyone off and release stuff like this. Yeah. And the media is not helping when they're pushing the questions that anger the fans and the audience. It's just the playbook is so old that you guys are, I'm sure, tired of hearing us talk about it. The piss off the fans model does work, whether we like it or not. It does. But that's what it is. Obscurity and fading into irrelevance is even worse for them, so they're going to continue to upset everyone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the OG fans were already checked out long before Andor came out.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.